as a Zoom meeting due to the ongoing pandemic. The link is at the top of the agenda, or there is an audio call-in number as well as the associated meeting ID with our gathering. Lisa, let's confirm that we have a quorum. I think we do, but I'll have you do a quick roll call.
All right. Brinkmeyer,
Here.
Broom,
Here.
Jushishin,
Here.
Ratcliffe,
Here.
Sale,
Here.
Schultz,
Here.
and Williams.
Here. All right. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Find a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak on any subject that is not a specific agenda item. We ask that you share your name, your address, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes. So I'll find my mute button so you can find yours. All right, we'll move on then. Item 5, discuss and consider the meeting minutes from our Plan Commission meeting held on October 13th, 2021. Any comments, edits, or consideration for motion on the meeting minutes?
I didn't see anything, and I would make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as presented from the October 13th, 2021 Plan Commission.
All right, thanks, Don. Is there a second? Thanks, Alex. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Item 6 is to discuss and consider a application for a site plan amendment for Hydride Chemical to construct an extension to the existing canopy or on their maintenance building located at 114 North Main Street. So do we have someone from Hydride on?
Yes, I'm Derek Teeter. I'm the maintenance manager at Hydride Chemical right there in Cottage Grove.
All right, Derek.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks for having me. I can give you guys a little briefing on what we're doing and why we're doing it, if that would be helpful.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yep, so on the east side of our facility, 114 North Main Street, we have our maintenance building, and it's a 200-foot long building, and we'd like to extend the overhang an additional 10 feet. During the winter, we get all the runoff from the roofs, and the water pools in that area, and we get about 6 inches of ice. It's a high forklift traffic area for our operators. They store, there's racking right up against that building where they store totes, material, equipment mostly. So it's difficult to get to in the winter months. So that's the purpose of this project.
All right. Aaron, staff comments from what was in the packet?
So obviously this is a pretty small project, but just enough that we had to go through this process, but didn't have any concerns or conditions. It's covering an area that's already paved, so there's no increase in impervious area, anything like that. Josh from Strahan took a brief look at it, and there was really no engineering concerns or anything to look at there, so we'd recommend approval.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Timeline, Derek, I'm assuming yet before the snow flies or flies too much?
Yeah, we would like to get a lot of work done before snow flies. We'd like to get, there's some concrete pillars we got to put in. We'd like to get that done before snowfall. We're having issues getting steel and material ordered. So we're hoping that we can get that before the year so we can get that on our 2021 budget. But we're unsure if we'll get all the materials needed for the roof.
All right. Any questions from commission members?
I looked at it and it looked pretty straightforward. And I guess I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval for the application for a site plan amendment from Hydride Chemical Company to construct an extension to an existing canopy on their maintenance building located at 114 North Main Street.
All right, is there a second? Thanks, Don.
Second.
Thanks, Kim. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Thanks, Derek, for coming out.
Thanks, guys.
Item 7 then is to discuss potential zoning amendment related to classification of utility land uses. There is a memo in the packet. I think. Remember right? Yep. Aaron, you want to take it away?
Sure. Obviously, this stems from past couple meetings. We were talking about the Alliance substation. Just before we get into this, we did meet with Alliant, and they're not planning to move forward with the substation on that site. They do still need one somewhere, so they're looking at other options. And, trying to figure out another place that works. It won't be the place that they proposed on Bonnie Road. At the end of the last meeting, I think it was Melissa that recommended we take a look at our zoning ordinance, related to this land use, and maybe look at how we could change it to give us a little more discretion when such projects come forward. To start doing that, I looked at how this would have been handled under ordinances in some comparable communities. Sun Prairie, their ordinance is actually very similar to ours. It probably kind of started out very similar, and then over the years they kind of evolved. But their regulations for this use were almost identical to ours. They do term it a special use, but that just means it has additional regulations attached to the land use. We also have that. We just don't call it a special use. So as far as I can tell, if we were applying Sun Prairie rules to the same situation we just had, I think we would have been in the same boat, and we wouldn't have really had grounds for denial. DeForest, McFarland, and Wanakee were all pretty similar to each other. In their cases, this type of use would be a conditional use, but they didn't have any specific criteria in their ordinance by which you would judge whether to approve it or not. There's this very subjective language that applies to any conditional use they would look at. With changes to state law a few years ago, the burden is really on a municipality to deny or to prove the case for denying a conditional use. And usually that would require, objective criteria to measure against, which it doesn't appear that any of those municipalities would have had. So I think they would have had a hard time denying it also. So I think, if we're going to move forward with the change in this area, conditional use is probably not the way to do it, given the current status of conditional uses under state law. So I think what I would recommend taking a look at would be creating a separate land use as an electrical substation, and a separate from all the other types of utility uses that it was kind of lumped in with before. Revise that public service and utility land use definition so it specifically does not include substations, and then allow the electrical substation use only in general or heavy industrial districts, or possibly also rural holding, and then specify some distance that we can talk about away from residentially zoned properties. The rules for a rezone are different than for conditional use. You have more discretion whether to rezone something or not. So I think that would give us the kind of control where we might be looking for with this type of project.
I appreciate the work. I guess, John, can I comment? I guess
Absolutely.
I appreciate the work, Aaron, but we're small, right? Cottage Grove is too small. This landing of the substation, which clearly I think we all kind of see that there's a need there. Once this is done, we should be good for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And I think, I don't know, planning commission, we saw how that worked out. I've been on this committee for a while, and we've seen some amazing presentations by innovators wanting to develop in the community. And Alliant Energy came in and said, here's my spot. And there's just nothing there that really we were able to say, hey, this is good for the community. They had no presentation skills. I think it'd be more interesting to put effort into working with Alliant Energy, finding the correct space, because we still need it, rather than finding where we don't want to put it or creating language. Just get it where it needs to be, and we're good for the next 50, 60 years. I mean, I don't know. It's just my take on it. It's just, I don't know that there's a whole lot of value in creating this document to stand for another 100 years or so. I don't know when's the next substation that we need. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of work into this. It still doesn't solve the problem of where are we going to put that substation that Alliant Energy seems to think we need. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to work with them on the next site before they come back here. So that'll happen anyway. This would basically be more of a backup mechanism in case they push forward on a site that we decide we don't like. But
yeah, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, though, too, is if they can defend with a good presentation that's saying, hey, if I don't do it here, you're done. And I'm not really thrilled as this came up now that we have a single transmission line through the core, and I think both substations are fed off the same transmission line. Like we have a single point of failure, so there's a couple other issues, and so if the utility came in and said, hey, if you don't do this, you're done, we would just say, okay, we won't have lights anymore. I don't know. At that point, we're in a different situation, I guess, right? I mean, we try to social engineer the community as best we can. That's called the plan, the comprehensive plan, whatever it's called. I forget the name. And I think that's where we could write it in there that, hey, these are places we look for utility growth. I think the lift stations and all that stuff might be part of that comprehensive plan. Should be. I mean, how we get water to the north, across underneath the highway and all that stuff. I think that's all in there. I don't know. I think it's good. I think we write legislation is good, but then, like you said, in some of these other cases too, it wasn't enough to hold us in an accountable direction, right? It was still too vague. So I don't know.
I guess I like it because then it's clear for utilities what is allowed, and the way this is presented, including even the last dot point about transmission lines, to considered in zoning to be buried if need be. I mean, I think it's a clear approach for utility that then they know, and we're not, you never know how many other substations may need. I mean, we may have, to your point, Alex, may have one of the ones that are existing right now that needs to be replaced and can't be in the current location. And that could happen, in 5 years. So I guess I'd rather have us be clear to the utilities and allow them to be able to follow an ordinance that's laid right out for them, so they don't come up with perhaps maybe an easy way to find a spot within where we really don't want it, and then we have to go through. They have to have delays and delays and delays because they've selected a spot that really the community is not going to like.
Yeah, you can go different directions here. Yeah, I mean, you were successful in having them steer in other directions. Underground transmission is going to be difficult. Depends on the voltages. You go from a $200,000 transmission line to 1.5 million per mile type of thing. And so, where's that burden of that cost and that type of stuff too. So, I like electricity. I'll just leave it at that. So I'm not advocating you go anywhere, but at some point, if it push comes to shove, we're gonna go where the lights go. So, yeah. I mean, it's good. I mean, it's there. So, but anyway, good job with where we're at with line energy right now. I mean, I think they do need to find a better spot. I think they need to find proper screening, noise mitigation, the drainage, and all that other stuff. And I think if they need to come in with a presentation that shows the value to the community, which I still don't think they did a very good job with.
I agree with John. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see Aaron go forward, including the line burial language, and we may even want to think about. There's a lot of, obviously in the future, a lot of things perhaps may change, but there may be an alternate utility. My mom actually worked for WP&L and then Alliant, and Black Earth had its own power utility, and Alliant or WP&L and MG&E wanted to come in. So they were looking at coming in and serving Black Earth instead of Alliance. So you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and it may not be Alliant. It may be someone else. We may have a different sort of energy delivery system in the future with the way things are perhaps may go in the future. And we may want to look at something with the solar panel stuff as well as the wind farm stuff too. So, we have some sort of control where that goes, and as far as how it looks as well. I'm not opposed to it, but there's a place for it, for all of it. So I think we should have a kick in the can on that as well as substations.
Other comments? Rick, were you going to say something? You unmuted a second ago. I saw you.
Yeah, I'm always going to defer to plan commissioners. So basically, I just wanted to make a comment on the burying line. So like Aaron mentioned in that memo, transmission lines, and I'm going to defer to Alex on all the technical aspect of it and the costs and all that. The transmission lines, potentially burial requirements there, we run into some legal issues. But when we get into like zoning requirements or conditional use or special use requirements for the utilities themselves or like Alliant, then it potentially gets a little bit easier as for imposing burying lines for them, because it's just going to be a little cheaper than the actual ATC transmission line, I believe. And Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But the other, we also have flexibility. So one thing we may want to look at is zoning requirements or developer requirements, putting that in the ordinance itself, saying that developers need to bury lines that are adjacent to the property, because right now the ordinance it only applies to subdivisions of land. So if we've got flexibility with plan unit development, but maybe we can look at some other ordinance requirements, making that a requirement, since that's the direction the village wants to go with burying lines in general. So just making that more uniform. So that's really just wanted to touch on that, since I know that's been a new push for the village.
Thanks, Rick. Other commission members' comments?
I think it's kind of hard to put a language in there, because in that rural area, I don't know if burying the lines is that important, but maybe in the heavy commercial industrial area it is. So it's kind of hard when you have both of that combined into the same ordinance. I do really like Don's point of getting ahead of the solar and the wind farm, because I'm seeing a lot more of that as well.
Okay. Thanks, Kyle. I think Rick kind of cleared up the whole burying of lines thing. It's totally separate. As well, I believe, is what you're saying, Kyle and Don. around wind farms and solar that would probably be covered under something different. Is that correct, Rick?
Yes, wind farms and solar, there are even specific state laws on those, but it would be a different type of regulation than what we'd be dealing with here.
Keep the focus narrow, right?
Make some changes. I think it was earlier this year, kind of bringing the solar aspects of the ordinance more up to date from what they were previously. So some of that
Yes.
we worked on already.
Yeah.
The wind is a good one to take a look at.
Any other questions or comments from commission members?
I just want to note that I didn't bring it up at the last meeting. I think Kyle may have, but I appreciate this being brought up for us to look into further. And I do see the benefit of going through with it and putting some parameters in place to prevent utility companies from going where we don't want them to end up at. I mean, because Alliant could have continued to push this space because that's what the comp plan allows. So I appreciate Aaron's work on this and thank whoever brought it up for us to look at this month too.
Actually, I brought it up.
Thank you, Don.
You bet.
Yeah, and I'm sure Aaron's appreciative of that too. More work. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm hearing for Aaron to continue moving forward with this. And then obviously, ultimately, we'll work with legal once he's finally got it in rough shape enough for them to take a peek at. Not hearing any nays, so I'm going to assume that's the direction Aaron has.
I have a
We'll
question.
come back. Yeah, Brad.
Do we need to do this though quickly before Alliant comes back? Because I mean, at some point, when are they going to decide they don't want to play nice? Because legally, I don't believe we could have stopped them from putting it where they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it as soon as next month. We just have to have a public hearing and have language that we agree on.
Let's go for it.
I agree.
I mean, I don't think they're coming back next month, but I appreciate the point. They'll be back eventually.
Again, as Aaron said, staff is continuing to work with Alliant too. We're trying to find an appropriate spot for that substation because it's needed. So, all right.
From our conversations with them, they would most likely come in with a concept earlier on in the process to show you guys before we get as far down the road as they did this last time.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on. Thanks again, Aaron and Rick, and for the comments. Moving right down to future agenda items. Aaron, anything on your radar that we need to cover? We'll obviously have what we just talked about again, public hearing on that.
It's actually going to be another little project at Hydride. Unfortunately, we just found out about it a day or two ago, or we could have just combined them on one agenda, but that didn't work out, so we'll look at that next time. Those are the two that are for sure. There may be something else too.
Okay. All right. Anything else from commission members, future agenda items? All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Fred. Is there a second?
I'll second. Alex.
I don't know who that was. I think it was Kim. I don't know, but I heard Don after that. Don's laughing.
Don's laughing, but I think Kim got it.
Yeah.
That's because I was just going to say, when you said item 9, I was going to say, Fred, this is your turn. But you.
I'm
All right, that's
following along. I knew.
Yeah, there you go. Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Happy birthday, John.
Thanks. I feel old. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.